I'd like to call this regular school board meeting of the Jamestown Public School to order. It is March 20th, 2023 at 5:15 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room in the school. I'd like to recognize all those in the audience tonight, and we'd also like to welcome our newest board member, Jamie Bear. So you can wave, and yeah, very good. And welcome to the board, and we look forward to having you with us. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right. Gail, would you read the school board norms?
The board developed norms are to share and respect varied opinions and speak with a united voice once a decision has been reached, to prudently prioritize resources in a student-centric manner that aligns with the district's strategic plan, to exhibit a mindset of continuous improvement through adequate preparation for meetings and a commitment to board education, to commit to assessing board effectiveness to ensure high-quality governance for the staff, students, and community of Jamestown.
Thank you, Gail. We have no public communication. Are there any new conflicts of interest? Are there any new conflicts of interest? Are there any new conflicts of interest? There being no conflict of interest, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. At any time, a board member can remove something from the consent agenda. It does not need a second. Let me know if there's something you'd like removed. Is there anything you'd like removed? Is there anything you'd like removed? If not, is there a motion for the consent agenda? Gail, motion to approve the consent agenda. A second by Diane. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Moving on to our regular meeting, we have nothing under recognition or correspondence. Student Council report. Will, would you please come forward and introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Will Nelson. I'm the Executive President of the Jamestown High School Student Council, and thank you for asking me to cover my report. This is actually my second to last report. Next month will be the last. So there's not a lot that the Student Council has done in the last month, but we have a fair amount ahead. We did just have prom this last weekend, but that's something coordinated by the junior class, and I'm pretty detached from that. Last year, that was my big responsibility, but this year, I wasn't very involved. But if any of you have any questions about that, about the post-prom, the Grand March, I can bring a junior class representative to my next report, and they can answer any of those questions that you might have. I just don't know if it's best for me to answer questions about that with how detached I was from the process. On April 5th, we'll have a student council-led blood drive like the one we usually have in the fall. We have 2 a year. This will be our second, and that's done with Vitalent. I think we had over 40 donors in November, and we hoped for at least 35, so we did pretty well at the last one, and we hope to do as well at the next one. And on that same day, we'll have the elections for next year's executive board of the Student Council. So that's when my successor will be elected, and I'll inform you all of who that is at the next report. And then in the May report, they'll be the one giving the report and hand off the baton to them into the future. But other than that, that's all I have to report for the JHS Student Council.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Well, thank you, Will, and we look forward to your last report next month. Moving on for board education, we have Strategic Competency Summit of Success. Mr. Gaylor and Brooke Wickens and Graydon Thorlickson, please come to the podium.
Hello, I'm Graydon Thorlickson, a student at JHS. This is Brooke Wickens, another student, and this is Principal Gaylor. This is a report on the JHS Summit of Success. So take it away, bro.
So the goals of the Summit of Success were to kind of encourage a feeling of leadership and belonging and kind of address some issues like humanity and just encourage students to find their feeling of gratitude and their feeling of leadership and unity in this school. And so Graydon and I are both in the sociology class that helped plan this event. And so we were kind of part of creating the ideas and the goals behind this. So we had 2 days of the Summit of Success where we went to where were we? Where was it? Newman Arena is where the Summit of Success took place. Sorry, I'm new to Jamestown, so I don't know a lot of these locations. And so the first day, we kind of had some presenters come in and discuss some of these themes. And then the next day, we really got together and we created solutions to some of the problems that we as students saw in our school community.
So as you can see by that chart, there were a lot, like the blue is freshmen and the red are sophomores. And that's really good for us because they can come back year after year and just build on the leadership that they're learning. There weren't a lot of juniors or seniors, but that's partly because there just aren't many in the school. Students could apply to the Summit of Success seeking staff recommendation, but some were nominated based on their leadership qualities by the teachers.
So again, we were part of the planning, and so one of the causes for the need for the Summit of Success is the January 31st event. And so we kind of took that initiative in brainstorming those parts of the day that we would come together and create those solutions as students. We do thank for the catering because that made a huge difference throughout the day, because it's part of our role in creating it was making it engaging for students, because we as students understand what it's like to be a kid sitting in a room for several hours a day. And so those snacks were very helpful.
Okay. So as she said in the first slide, I'll just go more in depth. On the first day, we really explore the ideas that expand our thinking and how we create ideas. So we discussed our norms, we did team building activities, and we defined what leadership and influence is to us.
Yeah, one of the great things about this Summit of Success is it required a lot of reflection from the students, and it required the students to think about what their definition of leadership and inclusivity meant. And I was super impressed by the energy in the room, because I didn't know many of these people, but I was able to get into groups with strangers I had never met and find that we could really find a common ground with one another. And so that was really cool, and I think the results were very representative of that feeling of unity that came from this Summit of Success.
On the first day, for a brain break and just getting activity in, Mr. Nelson brought little dodgeballs, and we played trench ball, and I thought that was really cool because it kind of broke up all the talking and the work, and I don't know, it made me want to do more. I don't know. That's I like dodgeball.
Yeah, it did help break up that monotony and kind of get us our energy back so we could work together some more. So the second day, we went more in depth on those themes that we talked about in the first day, and we split up into groups, and we addressed certain questions about what issues we saw in the school, what strengths we thought the school had, opportunities for improvement in the school, and we took those ideas that we came up with in the group, and we split into even smaller groups based on ideas that we found in common, and we went to create our own presentations or design solution projects and create posters or slideshows that we would present to the other students about what we think could be changed in the school that would make a difference in one of those aspects.
So generating solutions through student voice. A lot of the things we did were based around what the students had to say. So a lot of them wanted to make clubs or activities that promoted leadership development and improving our culture. There were a lot of ongoing leadership summits, and it was, you know what? I don't know what I'm saying. So.
It's okay. So yeah, this is a list of solutions that we as students came up with. So these are just some of the themes that we found So there are things like one of the suggestions was the ongoing leadership summits. We think that this group of 50 students really has a more unified mindset towards leadership and making a change in our school. And so we think if this sort of thing continues, that could be really impactful because it gets more students just focused on that mindset of change and improvement. So yeah, you can look through that list there, and those are the solutions that we addressed, like safety protocols, bystander intervention, inclusivity, a lot of activities like promoting leadership and focused on improving the culture at our school. Student-led announcements, that's one that I'm super passionate about. I think it would be good to give students more power, which is another reason why Graydon and I are here. We think if there are more student presentations at board meetings, just giving students more leadership in the school community, that sort of mindset can spread and just create a more positive culture.
So where next? We would like to synthesize all the solutions that we presented and the ideas and combine them and then eventually present them to you guys or Mr. Smith, who's the JHS teacher of leadership because he's in that sociology class. We want to revisit the solutions that we made, like the student-led announcements, for example, and make the Summit of Success an ongoing thing. Like maybe once every 2 months, or we don't know, but it should happen again.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're just overall very grateful for this experience and this opportunity. There's a picture that we all took together on the second day. And you'll see that there is quite a bit of diversity in that group, which was just really awesome to see. And it's crazy to me that I don't know any of those people, but now I've had this experience with those people that we all can identify with. And so yeah, one thing that we really kept stressing while we were at the Summit of Success is we don't want this to stop. We really want to revisit these solutions that we came up with and make them a reality. We don't just want to give up on it now that our 2 days are over. So yeah.
Are there
That's
any
our report.
questions? Okay. Sweet.
We really appreciate you coming here and sharing with us. Melissa has a question.
Actually, not a question so much as a comment. I work in the Newman area of UJ, and I happened to be able to go over there. I wasn't spying or anything. I happened to be going over there for my job. And one of the things that really made me happy to kind of hear was it wasn't adults talking to the students. I could hear that the students were actually interacting with each other, and it seemed to be very student-led as opposed to a faculty or somebody like telling you what you guys needed to be doing. So I commend you guys for doing that, and I hope that it can continue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Diane.
That was a great presentation. I wanted to comment that I like the specifics of it when you talked about celebrating diversity, things you could do to do that, and inclusivity, things you could do to make that happen. That's what I was hoping would come out of the summit. So it sounds like you were right on target and got down to the nitty-gritty instead of just pie in the sky stuff. So that's impressive. And I wanted to tell you that I am just impressed with 50 students stepping forward to do this. It's really great. And so as a board member, I say congratulations to you and thank you. And as Zach's mom, I say, way to go, Graydon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yes, thank you for the work and the presentation. Do you have established like a little leadership group within your group? I'd be interested in knowing more specifics, and not now, but how we are going to carry this forward, because I love it, and it's a great idea to have a continual thing, even if it's twice a year, what have you. I just wasn't sure. I can see maybe a president and vice president of this group standing right there to make sure that some of this stuff really does happen. I didn't voluntold you. It's up to you guys. But yeah, just looking forward to seeing what more this group does to make things happen. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I am a senior, so I will be gone next year.
Aaron?
Yeah, I also appreciate your inputs there. As far as actionable items, I think, there's a responsibility of the board itself here. And in our retreat, we talked about strategic planning and inputs that we could utilize to help us develop our strategic plan going forward. I think this one right here is probably a really good input for us to take a look at from a board level, to take these inputs that they're providing to us and use them as development of our strategic plan year on year. So appreciate your work that you guys put forth for that.
Thank you.
Any other? Dan, go ahead.
You did mention there was going to be a further board briefing at some other point with probably a bit more details in that. I'm assuming that's we can use that for our board retreat. Using that detailed data would be. Yep. I like this, but I think you've already done a lot of the detail work too, so we can use that for our planning. So thank you.
Any other comment? Go ahead, Jeannie.
Thank you. Guys are both very articulate and bright. Thanks for sharing with us. I was just wondering, the students, is there a cap at how many students can participate? It's all just whoever wants to volunteer or gets nominated by teachers?
So far, there's no cap. I mean, I would imagine it's just however many the Newman can hold, or maybe we would have to find a new venue. But for now, I mean, 50 was perfect. So maybe we could get more, maybe, hopefully not less. But
I think there was a goal for this first trial run of a certain number of students, and I don't know quite what that was.
Well, we had ordered food for up to 80, and we, had hoped for 30 plus, and we were really pleasantly surprised with the number of applications and nominations that came in.
Very good. Anything else? Well, I'm just going to comment by the number of board members that had comments and things to say. We appreciate students coming and sharing work that you've done, and we're, as everyone stated, all very appreciative. So, and we hope to use some of the information that you've gathered and created, and just helping us as a board to serve the students and our constituents better. Dr. Leck?
Great, and I think you started with gratitude, so I want to extend that gratitude to both of you for your willingness to come here and share. And I visited with Mr. Gaylor and Brooke regarding students coming and speaking before the board, and that's not always easy. You did a fantastic job of representing that group of 50. There's much gratitude in this room, as you've already heard, for your willingness to come and share about the Summit of Success. And I would agree, whatever we need to do to continue that support moving forward, we are more than willing to do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate being here.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on in our agenda, E, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Luck.
Thank you. You have my written report. Just to touch on a few items, we do have later on in the agenda, from a personnel standpoint, Mrs. Reed has immediately upon in the business with a business vacancy, she had agreed to come back and do planning, and so the recommendation from me moving forward will be the day after that resignation. That should say February 7th, right? February 7th, and that should be the planning immediately for the remainder of the school year. And a great thank you to Mrs. Reed for her willingness to come and fill that gap for the remainder of the year. This would not be a long-term sub position. This would be a replacement. And just for clarity, and I know the board is aware of this, but just for clarity, those hired after January 1st by North Dakota Century Code, those are not continuing contracts. And I know that is not what Mrs. Reed is looking for anyway, but just for the sake of clarification, that is not a continuing contract. I linked a clerical memo for those that haven't been around in the negotiations process or for a negotiation cycle. I have done clerical memos. It is not my intention to negotiate. I'm simply providing a memo that outlines the changes that hopefully have no discussion. There are date changes, grammar changes, in my experiences in going through negotiation cycles that sometimes can be big hang-ups. We spend a lot of time talking about where commas lie or making sure that all the dates are updated, and we want to spend our time in the real work and the real discussions of labor relations. So my hope is that we can clear up some of those things. I would present that clerical memo in one of the first negotiations meetings, and hopefully if both sides were to agree, all of those things would be approved at one time, and they're clean and clear, and we just move forward and we don't have to talk about those other items. I did, beyond that, as I've done it a few times in the past, there have been some substantive, generally speaking, it's non-substantive topics that come in, like date changes or grammar or just minor changes, clerical things. There are times where I brought up what I would consider at least to be somewhat substantive, and you'll find that in one of the items, and that's just a recommendation that I have that I believe needs to be addressed, and that is the payment for driving district vehicles. That is at a rate similar to what we would pay for activity tickets. Somebody to take activity tickets sitting at a table, that is right now established to be the same cost per hour. I don't believe that does move the bar in encouragement of people to drive those. And I think we need to be closer to somewhere else. And I would just encourage the board to look at that item and work and try to find what would be a more reasonable rate of pay for that. Sick leave bank change recommendations. Earlier this year, the board passed policy on parental leave. When we had in the previous negotiation cycle, the board established a task force to look at leave. We really came up with two primary items: parental leave, which you've already passed in policy, and then the sick leave bank. I want to talk just briefly about the sick leave bank. We know the parental leave has been well received. I think we've had somewhere in the 8 to 10 range, I'd have to look and count, but that have accessed parental leave thus far, so a big benefit to staff, and I know that the staff that I've talked to have appreciated it. The next change, though, relates to sick leave bank, and I'm sure that Melissa, who serves on that committee, would agree. Right now, the sick leave bank focuses on, or the determinant is catastrophic and life-threatening. That's how you can access. There's ambiguity to those terms. We've struggled as a committee when we decide, well, what is that? What does that mean? And so we wanted to clarify better how somebody would access in terms of do they qualify or not. So I think not only would it help the committee, but it would also help those staff members to determine, well, can I apply? Because sometimes people look at their situation and say, well, that's not catastrophic or life-threatening. I'm not even going to apply. And other times people say, well, why not just give it a shot? And we don't want an inequitable benefit. And when people that can apply don't apply, that's an inequitable benefit. So the solution that we've come up with as a leave task force is to outline 6 different criteria, and if you can meet 3 of those, then you're eligible to apply, and it goes to the sick leave bank. And I've listed what those are, and that's in policy there. The difference between the parental leave policy and sick leave bank is sick leave bank exists in both the negotiated agreement and in policy. So you would have to change it first in the negotiated agreement, then the board can change it in policy because it lives in both places. Parental leave only exists in policy. So you would have to change it in both. So that has to be negotiated, which is why I bring it up separately. And that would thus take a little bit longer to find a resolution. In parental leave, we were able to bring it forward as a first reading, have a second reading, and it was suddenly instituted. So you'd have to negotiate this. I don't know, Melissa, did you have anything to add with sick leave bank, just serving in the committee? Okay. I think it's, the other thing related to sick leave is we have a lot of days in the bank. And we want to make sure that it is not so restrictive that it can't be used, but restrictive enough that it's not used and simply drains the bank of days, and we're asking people to add days back to the bank again. So I think there's a middle ground that we're trying to find with those 6 criteria So it would still be determined by the committee, but it would just be an easier process. The other thing I didn't mention is right now, you have to fill out a piece of paper. That application goes, and in 5 days, we need to meet as a committee. The suggestion would be that we would do it online, on Frontline, so it'd be easier for individuals to apply, but also that we would have 10 days then to meet. The 5 days got pretty onerous at times, depending on when those requests came in to try to get everybody together in the span of 5 days sometimes was challenging. So we think 10 days would be a little bit better. I'm just going to pause. Are questions with the sick leave bank policy?
Gail.
I would just like to address, I like the change in this. I think it gives people who might have chronic illnesses some more flexibility, and those are some people that sometimes will use more sick leave because they have something like ulcerative colitis or something like that acts up and it is ongoing. So thank you for those changes, and that is the feedback that I've gotten too, was that those things might be included is very appreciated.
So thank you. Any other questions about sick leave bank or clerical? Okay. We are in the process right now. We'll do interviews tomorrow for Roosevelt Elementary, and then we are looking forward to moving on the JHS assistant principal as soon as we're completed with that. So the process for these two has looked similar to the other administrative searches that we've conducted during my time. Start with a survey, you then use that survey to create an employment profile. Who are we looking for? We use that employment profile to draft questions specific to those areas, and then we use the job description to create that employment profile, ask specific questions related to those, who are making sure that we're not only finding the best professional, we're also finding the best fit. So that's the process we're going through in Roosevelt and also then in JHS.
I just want to, just so the board's aware that, as you know, we try to have everybody on one of these searches, and Aaron Roberts hadn't served yet, and so he is the board person on that committee, so just for board awareness. Yes, Diane?
Dr. Leck, I'm not sure you've told us this, but since you're basing your matrix on survey input, about how many survey responses did you get?
I believe it is 45 for Roosevelt and 126 or 100. I said 126. I think. Oh no, it is 126 at JHS. So a large number, and we get parent and staff. We share it out with both parents and with staff.
Jason?
Mr. Roberts was on the Roosevelt or the high school?
Roosevelt.
Are we still looking for a high school?
We haven't started that process
Okay,
yet. But
thank you.
just,
Thank you.
But yep, the Roosevelt one was open prior to the high school one being open, so Mr. Roberts hadn't served yet, and so he was asked to serve on that.
I don't have anything to add to the Summit of Success. I think Graydon and Brooke did a fantastic job. I take that back. I do have one thing to add. The board's own Gail Nelson was one of the 4 speakers on day 1, talking about leadership, and we appreciate that you were there and shared your wisdom with our students. I also expressed when I was able to be there for a few hours on day 2, and I expressed that I would love the opportunity to come back and speak to them as well, discussing leadership and conflict and how do you, work through both of those items. I did change, just for the board awareness in your agenda, I did change I should have renamed an agenda topic, and I think it caused some confusion. Instead of approval of sale, we're really talking about approval of disposal of assets. So I did, if you notice that slight change in the agenda, that's what the appropriate name would have been. And I have 2 spotlights, one written and then one I'll just talk about briefly. But for legislative spotlights, you can always look at the Google Doc, and I have them. House Bill 1187, I think I've talked about this bill in the past, but House Bill 1187 has actually passed both sides now, and I have not seen if it's been signed by the governor yet or not. But in this bill, it would allow a district to provide a bonus for reassigned professional staff as long as they've been working in this school district for 2 years or more. So this is different than other bonus bills that or other opportunities for bonuses. We know that there's very, very limited opportunities for this. This bill is different because it's specific to reassigned staff in your district. So it's not, you don't provide a bonus to somebody that was teaching science in Edgeley and now they're, you give them X amount of dollars over 5 years to come and teach science in your district. It's reassigning existing staff. The example that I gave was if you have a classroom teacher that is willing to take on a role in special education. That might be an incentive that you provide to encourage that person to utilize their credential or receive new, or update their own credentials, get new coursework, so they are able to teach in that need area. And that is determined by the board. The board makes the decision, do we want to provide a bonus in these areas? You don't have to do it necessarily ahead of time and say we move to approve bonuses in these areas, but you would want to have a conversation around what are you incentivizing if you opt to do that. We've struggled in special education, we've struggled in high school math, as you're aware, in ELA. Those are some of the areas that we have seen struggle in, but they would be only for people that are in our district now and that are agreeing to take on that new role, which is a role that you've determined that you need. So I can provide a little bit more information on that if you'd like, but that is something that is new to us, or hopefully will be new to us, assuming that Governor Burgum signs that bill. The second bill I wanted to spotlight was House Bill 1532. What 1532 provides, and that is currently in debate in the Senate, that has passed the House. It was a relatively close vote, but it has passed the House, moved over to the Senate for discussion. It has recently had a committee hearing, but House Bill 1532 provides $24 million in educational vouchers that would allow public funding to be sent directly to private education institutions. And so there's been a lot of conversation, and essentially this allows for allowable parental expenses, and it equates to about $3,000, a third of the state per pupil payment. A lot of conversation on both sides of this bill, enough that I think it warrants conversation or at least awareness at the board level. From the proponent side, those that support, it is about choice, an opportunity to fund a choice to attend a private institution as opposed to a public educational institution. And proponents will also say this is not money that's devoted currently to public education. So it's not a shift away from, that it is a separate carve-out for private as opposed to shifting the dollars from public. So that's what supporters will say. Opponents will say any dollars that are provided for education is a carve-out for away from public education, whether it's in a separate budget or the Department of Public Instruction. It doesn't matter whose budget it comes from. Any dollars devoted that aren't devoted to public education they all come from the same pool. $3,000 per student, which means that the largest private institutions would get as much in public funding as about a third of the public institutions in North Dakota. If you consider our rurals, it's about a third. They would receive more, even in that a third of a payment. They would receive more or as much or more in public funding that would go directly to those attending private education. A lot of conversation has been around inclusivity. In a private institution, you are able to say, these are the students that meet the profile to attend here, and you may not have the opportunity for some in special education, could be turned away, and that's not something that we do in public education. We say everybody comes regardless of what your needs are. We educate all. There's been questions and concern about from opponents as it relates to accountability, not just the rules and responsibilities to accept students, but some of the other requirements that we have, public dollars going to any institution, and the expectation from those opponents of 1532 are that, well, it would seem with public dollars, an audit would be generally expected for public dollars, but this would not require that. You would not have to conduct an audit, that transparency wouldn't exist. A lot of the rules and responsibilities that in public education we have to follow would not have to be followed in private education, and that's a concern as well. So $24 million, that's for about 7,700 students, and that's similar to a 1%. In the last few bienniums, we've received a 1% increase on the per pupil payment. That equates to about 24 million. So that's all we've gotten in a few legislative sessions, and that would be devoted to 7,700 students, as opposed to public schools that have over 100,000 students. So it's a large portion of dollars to be devoted to a carve-out of students. And I do know of an amendment that's been offered, and that amendment has stated that if communities want to provide choice, that it should come at a vote, and that private institutions could go to their community and request a vote, and they could have limited mill authority up to 3 mills. And if they had a percentage, whatever percentage is adopted, 50% has been discussed. If they could receive that, then they would have limited mill authority to levy themselves, instead of asking the state to provide a payment to them, that you would have limited levy authority to do that. The reason why that amendment has been offered is because there are many communities in the state of North Dakota that don't have any private institution. There's a handful that do, Jamestown being one. But for two previous districts of mine, Rolla and Beulah, they don't have private institutions for choice. So the tax dollars that flow into the state are distributed to those communities like Jamestown that do have private institutions. And that's why this amendment was offered, is it would be a choice in that community. You make that choice as a community member, whether you want to see local dollars devoted to, rather than combining the state's tax dollars and shifting them to 7,700 students. You would have the option to make that commitment in your own community. So with that, I would stand for questions about either of those bills or any other bill, or if any board member wants to have conversation about either of these bills or any other bill, feel free.
Go ahead, Gail.
I know in the past we've had legislators come prior to legislative sessions. Is that something we could explore in the future, because their decisions impact so many of the decisions that we make? And I wonder if they are hearing, I mean, I'm very grateful that 1187 may address some of what our real needs are in education, but I don't see a lot that has been addressing our teacher shortage and recruitment, some of those core issues, and I really feel like they need to hear from our local, and I'm sure you're communicating with them, and I know I am, but I think that opportunity to talk about those things and what the needs of our district are, so when they represent us, they can have those things in the back of their mind, would be very important. Because I'm very concerned, as I see coming up, approving more people who are leaving our district, who are young. And this cannot continue. And I especially feel that the bill you highlighted isn't going to address that or help that in the least.
It's a great idea. We have internally meetings with legislators, but including board members in those conversations would be very easy to accomplish, and I think would be a good next step moving forward.
And especially our teachers. I really want to know, why are they leaving? Where are they going? What would change that trajectory? I mean, as a, I'm a granddaughter, great-granddaughter, and a daughter of public educators, lifelong public educators. One died too young of the flu, but that's another story. I'm the parent of 2 public educators, and that was my career. So there's nothing I am more passionate about, nothing. So I just feel like we need to get a handle on that. I don't want us to bleed young, great educators.
Any other comments on either the bills? That- Okay. I think the voucher bill, I think just from constituents, I'm mostly hearing the concern that private education can choose their students and may not provide all services. And what taxpayer dollars could do for public education is just kind of what I'm hearing from when people talk to me about that. So there's, I liked how you pointed out the pros and the cons of the bill. Obviously, it would be dollars flowing into Jamestown as well. So, but those are just the things that I'm hearing on that one. And Gail, to your point, it's always nice to see when there's efforts made to if we can, for those hard to fill positions, especially out in rural areas, I think if you can provide some additional incentives, those, life takes people in different directions and those kinds of things, but also to recruit new teachers. And if there's some different incentives that we can do for hard to fill areas, I think that's great. So thank you. Go ahead, Gail.
With that 1187 and for teaching staff, would we have an equitable way of reaching out to staff who might be interested in making some of those changes? I would be concerned that it's something where people feel like one was chosen over another and they never got, so will there be a process for that so it's done equitably and fairly, and maybe get people who do have the greatest interest in that, maybe a change into that?
Well, I think that's a great point. It's something that we have to be very, very careful about in terms of implementation, because the incentive could be significant. If you're offering a $5,000 bonus over 5 years, that's a significant difference. And so you would want to make sure that it is very well advertised and articulated, so when you are making your choice, if you have multiple, I don't think we have a lot of individuals that currently have these various credentials that are interested in coming back into those, but if those individuals do, or if we can encourage new people, I think it's a great path. But absolutely, we need to outline an equitable, fair way to do that, so it doesn't become a winners and losers. Everybody has the same opportunity.
Any other questions on the superintendent report? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Luck. Moving on, nothing under old business. Under new business, nothing under activities or buildings and grounds or curriculum assessment and instruction. Under finance, we have approval of disposal of assets. Is there a motion? Motion by Dan. Is there a second? Second by Gail. We have a motion and a second for approval of disposal of assets. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. B, approval of the 2023 summer school fee and schedule. Is there a motion? Motion by Steve. Is there a second? Second by Aaron. We have a motion and a second for approval of the 2023 summer school fee and schedule. Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. General fund balance is there for your information, and if you have questions, Christy will be happy to answer those. Under D, we have monthly financial reports. Is there a motion for approval? Motion by Aaron. Is there a second? Second by Gail. We have a motion and a second for approval of the monthly financial reports. Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Under personnel, A, approval to hire Michelle Reed, business teacher at the Jamestown High School for the remaining 2022 to 2023 school year at BABS plus 16 with a salary of $23,675.93. Is there a motion? Motion by Gail. Second by Dan. We have a motion and a second for approval to hire Michelle Reed, business teacher at the Jamestown High School for the remainder of 2022 to 2023 school year at BABS plus 16 with a salary of $23,675.93. Any discussion? We are very grateful that she is filling this position for us. Very appreciative. There being no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Under B, approval of the resignations in your drive. Is there a motion to approve them all? Motion by Melissa to approve all the resignations in the drive. Is there a second? Oh, yes. Hold on. Do you want to do them all at once, or do you want to do them all? Okay. So I will read them. So we have a motion by Melissa, second by Diane, for approval of resignation of Brittany Chandler, special education strategist at the high school at the conclusion of the 2022 to 2023 school year. Approval resignation of Cindy Brunmeyer, math teacher at the Jamestown High School at the conclusion of the 2022 to 2023 school year. Approval resignation of Andrew Warder, machining teacher at the James Valley Career and Tech Center at the conclusion of the 2022 to 2023 school year. Approval of resignation of Christina Beardsley, reading and life skills teacher at Jamestown Middle School at the conclusion of the 2022 to 2023 school year. And these are for the accept letters of resignation for the 2022 to 2023 extended contracts for Bill Nelson, Cindy Brunmeyer, Kimberly Carpenter, Andrew Fitzgerald, Tom Mouse, Lee Meyer, Denise Wood, Hannah Lloyd, Shane Ead, Cody Mickelson, and Bob Thorson. I want to make sure the public is aware that those bottom ones are all just extra extended contracts for extra courses, and they're not resigning their full contract. So people have had questioned that before, so I just want to make sure the public is aware of that. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any discussion? And we also would like to thank every one of these for their service to Jamestown Public Schools. So thank you. There being no discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Policy and procedures. Approval of amended policy ACE, violent and threatening behavior. Is there a motion? Motion by Aaron. Second by Diane. We have a motion and a second for approval of amended policy ACE, violent and threatening behavior. Any discussion? Dr. Leck?
I just had a comment. I had a question earlier about if we're bringing policy, the amendment of ACE, is there any cause, or are we doing it for, it is part of our policy review by NDSBA. They brought this forward as an amended policy that they've seen a need for. It isn't something that we initiated. We are just following along with that with our policy services. So it doesn't denote something else. It is simply part of that annual review and recommended policy change.
So we have a motion and a second for approval of amended policy ACE, violent and threatening behavior. Any other discussion? Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Nothing under tuition and nothing under other. Items for future agenda. Yep, go ahead, Jason.
Two things. An update on kindergarten enrollment, if possible. I don't know if it's a little early for that, but I think that would be something that we should be on top of. The second item is, we just got done approving 4 more resignations. Unfortunately, I struggle with every teacher who resigns, personal reasons, whatever, because these are young, valuable professionals. And we just got done talking too about bonuses, financial incentives, those kinds of things. For the next board meeting, or even before that, maybe with Dr. Larson and Dr. Leck, I think we lose sight of retaining versus, attracting versus retaining staff. And I think we're going to see some interesting demographics coming up here during negotiations about, some of the longevity of our staff here in the district. I think it's time that we take a very serious look about what is going to make Jamestown not only the district to come to, but to stay at. I'm not going to say we've neglected that, because that wouldn't be fair, But I do feel that it's time that we really search what's happening in our district that's going to make people want to stay. People leave for all kinds of reasons. So before the next meeting, I would like to have a discussion about, some approaches that we can do to first off, analyze perhaps the climate within our school culture, that kind of thing, for employees. That being said, I just think it's time that we take some of these resignations, because it is very, very concerning to me. I see a Mrs. Chandler resigning, knowing that she's a McIntyre, and it used to be you used to want to come back to Jamestown to teach and stay, and it was a thing of family pride and whatnot. Times are different, I get that. I just want us to make sure that we're doing the best we can in analyzing why people are leaving and doing what we can to reverse that trend.
Jason, I think many businesses are looking at workforce, and the chamber even has a specific task force. Mr. Gaylor serves on that as well, and so certainly we want to always keep in mind the things that we want to. You always invest in people when they're your employees, and it's you definitely want employees to come to our district and stay in our district. Sometimes when you aren't employing both if they're married, or there's a lot of other family things that I think every workplace deals with as they have some turnover employees, but we certainly would like every employee to come to our district and stay, and if there's like I said, people have things that are probably there's things we can control and things we can't control, and certainly if there's things that we can control, we want to definitely continue to work on those. And workforce is one of those things. Yeah, Dr. Leck.
To your point, Jason, I think we do want to make sure that we understand, and as Dr. Larson said too, there's many reasons why people make the choice to leave that's right for them. It isn't necessarily, it could be for family reasons, it could be professional reasons, opportunities somewhere else as opposed to here. It isn't. We want to be careful to not make the connection between culture and resignations. That may be a factor that people make a choice to leave, and it may have nothing to do with the reason that people leave. Where I think we are able to ascertain what those are is the exit interviews that we've already established as being part of our analysis for when people leave our district, whether they are a custodian, whether they are a teacher, whether they are an administrator, and that is new to us. We don't have a lot of data on that yet, and we also rely on people filling out those exit interviews. There are times when people do not want to fill out the exit interview or choose not to participate in an exit interview, and I don't think a school would be alone in that. I think any business would see a certain percentage of people that opt to participate in an exit interview. But I think that's where the data you're looking for really lies, and that is somewhat of a new, that's a new process for us. And I think over time we'll gather some good data on what that is. But I just want to make the connection that culture and resignations could be very different things. One does not necessarily connect to the other in all instances, and I want to make sure that we're making that point because we have a lot of great teachers. We don't ever want to lose a great employee, whether they are a great custodian or a great teacher or a great building administrator. But there are times when they leave our district for better opportunities or for other reasons outside of contentedness at their job.
Yeah, and just workforce is such a topic right now in a lot of different areas. Diane, go ahead.
Just to Jason's point, I think it's a nationwide problem, and I think they're going to have to figure out why the teaching profession is stumbling, and we could be the microcosm of that as in Jamestown. But the future agenda item that I wanted to bring up, I let it slip away, but going back to the Summit for Success. You know, we received a lot of press on February 1st, and I just want to make sure that this Summit for Success and any other efforts we're making is covered by the press. And I didn't read anything about that, but if they meet again, I'd be happy to call it in, or whoever, but I think it's something that's worthy of a news story after all of the news stories that came out the first week of February. We're improving, and we're trying, and there's big effort here.
Thank you, Diane. Any other? Aaron had mentioned we have a policy for board evaluation, and this is something that we had done before the policy. The policy was approved a couple months before the pandemic started, and so then we ended up in virtual meetings, and lots of things kind of got pushed ahead. So when we can do it we used to do it, I was thinking it was right around the superintendent evaluations, but I was thinking it also might make more sense to do that and bring the results of it to a retreat, so we can further have some further discussion in a retreat format. That might be good material for us to use for a retreat. So if someone has some real strong feelings on timeline or what type of meeting format, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll sort of plan for a retreat for that. Getting us back on track with our strategic planning and our evaluation processes, and moving forward with some of those things as well. Dr. Leck?
Just a comment to Diane's board retreat. I'm of the understanding that the Jamestown Sun is coming to the high school this week to interview and to learn a little bit more about the Summit of Success. So to your point, that's starting. So thank you to Mr. Gaylor for that.
Great, thank you. Any other items for future agendas? Any other items? Any other items? Okay. If you think of an item later, which you might, please let myself or Dr. Luck know, and we'll plan for that. For meetings to be scheduled, we have a school board meeting on Monday, April 3rd, 2023 at 5:15 p.m. in the Thompson Community Room at the middle school. We have an agenda item as possible executive session to discuss negotiation strategies. If there's no motion, we'll continue on. For your superintendent monthly evaluation, the topic this week is board relations and Section 3 human resource management. So complete that. There being no further business before the board, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.